Alright, so initially this video was going to just be about centrifugal and centripetal forces and differences and stuff, but man, the more I look into this, the more I start to see discrepancies in terms with multiple meanings or new terms, and it all seems to tie back into the timeline when they introduce Newton's F equals ma. It seems like they have unnecessarily complicated things. I'll give you some examples. Here they have, for centrifugal force, the equation F equals mw squared times r. So F is centrifugal force equals mass times angular velocity. Why would they have W for angular velocity and R for distance? Why would they have R for distance when R stands for radius in so many other equations and W stands for weight? It's intentional. In my opinion, it's all intentional. And see, look for centripetal force, and just given the first example, they have R for radius. So FC equals mv squared over radius instead of distance. And they have FC for centripetal force. Why don't they have a letter for centrifugal force? They just have F. To me, it's all intentional. But I start to look up definitions and units, and they sound similar. Like I looked up velocity, and it sounded a lot like speed. And I see what it's measured in. It's measured in meters per second. I look up speed. It's same thing. And then I look up the difference between velocity and acceleration, and I get velocity is the rate of change of displacement, and the definition for acceleration is the rate of change of velocity. So acceleration is the rate of change of the rate of change of displacement. It's crazy, man. It just doesn't make no sense, man. I have no idea why they would do that. And mass equals weight. There's no difference between mass and weight as long as you're on Earth. It's horseshit, man. So F equals WA will always be correct because nobody's leaving Earth. Okay, force equals mass times acceleration. So what is a force measured in? It's measured in newtons. What is a newton? A newton is 9.8 kilograms. So why invent a unit that's just 9.8 of another unit? It doesn't make sense. And you say, well, if we left Earth, we'd need F equals ma because you'd weigh different on another planet. Yeah, but let's entertain for a minute. So if the moon or Jupiter were rocky bodies we could land on, and we measured the acceleration, it wouldn't be 9.8 anyway. We wouldn't fall at the same rate as we do on Earth. So it's just a curveball to anyway. So I looked up the difference between force and acceleration, because an acceleration is a force and a force is defined basically as an acceleration. So Newton's first law says that object at rest or uniform motion will stay that way unless acted upon by a force. Okay, but you know they have something in there guarding against solid object, because you have to call mass a force, because if it's in uniform motion and it hits a mass, it would stop. That's basically puts the mass as a force. But we can move things with heat, but they won't consider heat a force. Maybe this is why they done away and superseded Newtonian mechanics with Einstein. They still sure like to use mass attracts mass and all the Newtonian physics, but I tell them gravity's just a theory. They say, well, in science, a theory is damn near proven. It's been through the method and all that. I'm like, oh yeah, well then what is theoretical physics? Is that proven genius? So I'm full circle back to centrifugal and centripetal. So I'm trying to find out the differences. Some examples. The weight of an object at the poles and on the equator. That's their first example. Like Wikipedia, and every time you look something up, they're just trying to tie in their globe theoretical physics in with real life every chance they get. So a bike making a turn. Okay, yeah, bike making a turn. Centrifugal force. Vehicle driving around a curve. equatorial railway, whatever the hell that is. But they can never give examples, real life examples of orbits and this other. It's getting crazy, and it's getting pretty obvious. To me anyway. I think people will start catching on. But anyway, so examples of centripetal: driving around a circular path, bank turn of an aircraft. Ain't that the same shit? Ain't that pretty much the same thing as we just seen? Children's swing, merry-go-round, or carousel, revolution of planets around the sun. Ta! There it is. Revolution of planets around the sun. More theoretical shit. At least they put that one last. So it's not gravity after all. It's centripetal force. Man, here we was thinking it was gravity. So differences. The two key differences. Centripetal is real and pushing towards the center of the circle. Centrifugal is fake and pushes away from the center. So the real one is the one we never see, feel, or whatever. It's pushing toward the center. The fake one is centrifugal, the one that pushes away from the center. The one in real life is the fake one. They call that real. You ask them, and they say, well, centrifugal is caused by the person. You swing something around, or you drive in a car, that's the force. Yeah, that's the same thing I say about gravity. Is the force is you lifting something out of equilibrium, lifting something in the air. So gravity is a fictitious force also. But then you looking further, you see Isaac Newton. So Isaac Newton discovered centripetal force. So that they tied him in with another discovery. So that shows you right there. They're trying to tie in globe physics, man. But some common examples of centrifugal force at work are mud flying off a tire and children. So real examples. And force pushing them children outward while spinning on a roundabout. A major example of centripetal forces is rotation of satellites around a planet. So that's the real one, is the rotation of satellites around a planet, or the orbit of planets. And the fake one is the mud being spun outward on a tire. It's a freaking joke, man. People are bound to start catching on. But so I was looking some more. It says merry-go-rounds are a perfect example of how a force is used to keep an object moving in a circular path. Your body wanted to fly off the merry-go-round in a straight line for real in real life, but your hands exerted an opposing force to keep you on. So your hands are the centripetal. But it says the tendency for your body to fly off a merry-go-round is called centrifugal force. It isn't a real force, but an apparent one. So flying off the merry-go-round is fake. The force used with your hands to stay on the ride is real and called centripetal force. So they got shit backwards. So they consider friction a centripetal force. The real quote-unquote force is, so the ground, they compared the ground as the centripetal force with a roller skate. So it's keeping it going in a circular motion. It's like your hand holding a string is a centripetal force. So basically they're measuring the inward force. Basically, but we don't really experience that. You can measure it, but to me it's still centrifugal. But here's a funny scenario. So if you're driving in the mountains and there's a curve without a guardrail and you're going too fast, so your centrifugal force throws you off the mountain and you die, and on your death certificate it says, cause of death was caused by centrifugal force, a fake force. You died from a fake force. And at your funeral they're like, if they could have just added some centripetal force to that turn, he'd still be alive, but there's no guardrails, so there was no centripetal force to stop him from flying off the cliff, and so you died from so that fake force that isn't real, it actually killed you, and the real one is just a scenario. The centripetal force being the guardrails is just a scenario in your head.